Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into a fascinating story from ancient texts, specifically the commentary on the Dhammapada.
Mm-hmm.
The source we're looking at is called the rakulupakatissattheravatthu, which is really just the name for this specific story about a monk, a jeweler, a king's gem, and a pet bird.
Right.
And trust me, it's a dramatic tale packed with surprising twists.
It absolutely is. This narrative isn't just a story, it's a powerful illustration. It raises some pretty fundamental questions,
Yeah.
about consequence, perception.
And how people end up on such different paths.
Exactly. Even when they're caught up in the same event, it really comes down to their actions, their state of mind at the time.
That's it. Our mission for this deep dive is to follow this sequence of events, understand the different actions and their immediate outcomes, and most importantly, see what this ancient narrative tells us about karma and rebirth.
Yeah.
You'll see how one incident, just one moment, can kind of ripple out and determine completely different futures for everyone involved.
Right. And the story starts with a foundation of trust. We're introduced to this monk, Thera Tissa, Thera, meaning elder monk, who had a very close, long-standing relationship with the jeweler's family. The texts tell us he lived with them for 12 years.
12 years. Wow.
Yeah, and they genuinely cared for him, like as if he were their own child. It was a deep bond.
So this wasn't just casual. He was really part of the family fabric, built over more than a decade.
Precisely. And that history, that closeness, makes what happens next particularly, jarring.
Right.
So the jeweler was busy cutting meat, actually, when a messenger arrived from King Pasenadi Kosala.
The king?
The king, yeah. He'd sent a precious gem with a specific request.
Mm-hmm.
Wash it, pierce it, and return it. Simple enough, you'd think.
Okay, here's where things take a turn, isn't it? The circumstances shift dramatically.
They really do.
The jeweler, still with blood on his hands from cutting the meat, takes the gem. The source says he placed it on a cutting board or something similar.
On the surface nearby.
And then stepped away, went inside to wash his hands. Just for a moment.
And this is the critical moment. While the jeweler was gone, the Thera, the monk, was watching. And in the house, they had a pet crane.
A pet crane. That's unusual.
It is a memorable detail, isn't it? The text describes it as fit to be reared, so it was clearly a valued pet.
Okay.
So this crane, it's attracted by the smell of blood on the cutting board, where the gem now lay.
Oh, no. Don't tell me.
Yep. It mistook the valuable gem for a piece of meat, and while the Thera looked on, the crane swallowed the gem.
Just like that. Gone. Witnessed only by the monk who, what could he do right then?
Exactly. A terrible accident. And the jeweler comes back, doesn't see the gem, and his immediate reaction, suspicion, panic.
He starts questioning everyone.
Systematically. His wife, his daughter, his son, they all denied taking it. Nope, wasn't me.
And with no other easy explanation presenting itself, his mind just leaks.
It takes a dark turn. The jeweler thinks it must have been taken by the Thera.
The monk. After 12 years.
Unbelievable, isn't it? He even goes to his wife, voices this suspicion about the monk who'd been like family.
What does that tell you? I mean, that he could just jump to suspecting someone he supposedly cared for so deeply, ignoring all that history.
It really highlights how powerful greed and panic can be, doesn't it? The value of that gem just instantly overshadowed 12 years of relationship.
But the wife's reaction is key here.
Absolutely crucial. A total contrast. The source says she strongly defended the Thera, told her husband, I've never seen him do anything wrong in all this time. He simply wouldn't take it.
Her intuition, maybe grounded in that long experience, just screamed no.
Right. She saw the person, not just the situation, but the jeweler. He wasn't listening. Despite his wife's plea, he confronted the Thera directly.
Just asked him.
Asked him straight up if he'd taken the gem from that spot. And the Thera's reply was simple, direct. I have not taken it, layman.
Layman, right? The term for a lay follower. But the jeweler wouldn't let it go, would he?
No. His mind was fixated, obsessed with the lost gem. He insisted, there was no one else here. It must have been you. Give it back.
And the Thera just maintains his innocence?
He does. And when the Thera still didn't produce it, the jeweler turned to his wife and said, basically, we need to pressure him. We need to make him confess.
And the wife again pleads for caution.
She does. She says, don't do this. Don't ruin ourselves over this. It would be better for us to become servants than to treat such a respected monk this way. Think about that.
That's incredible moral clarity, valuing integrity, respect over wealth.
Absolutely. But the jeweler, he's just blinded by the gem's value. He dismisses her concern completely, says becoming servants wouldn't even begin to cover the cost. His priorities are totally skewed.
And this is where it just escalates.
Yeah.
Tragically.
Right.
Brutally.
It really does. The source describes the jeweler taking a rope, tying it around the Thera's head,
Oh, God.
and beating him severely with a stick. The details are graphic. Blood flowing from his head, ears, nose, his eyes bulging out. Just horrific pain.
He falls to the ground.
Yeah, just collapses in agony.
That is chilling. After 12 years of treating him like family, to inflict that kind of violence based purely on suspicion, fueled by greed.
It's a stark, stark illustration of how quickly things can deteriorate, how rage and craving can just consume someone.
And then the crane reappears.
Yes, another layer of tragedy. The crane, the actual swallower of the gem, is drawn by the smell of blood again. But this time it's the Thera's blood. It comes over and starts drinking it.
The same bird. Caught right in the middle of the violence it unintentionally started.
Exactly. And the jeweler, seeing the crane there while he's, torturing the Thera, he's enraged. It's like misplaced anger.
He takes it out on the bird.
Yes. Fueled by his anger towards the monk, he just kicks the crane away with immense force. The source says the crane died instantly. Just like that. From that single kick. Falls rolling nearby.
Wow. So an accidental death, but directly caused by the jeweler's uncontrolled rage, which stemmed from the whole gem situation and his attack on the Thera.
It's a chain reaction of violence, and paradoxically, it's this second death, the crane's death, that finally brings the truth out.
How so?
The Thera, seeing the dead crane, manages to speak to the jeweler, despite his own agony. He tells him, Layman, first loosen the rope on my head, and look at this crane. Is it dead or not?
What's the jeweler's reaction to that?
He's probably still enraged, maybe thinks the Thera is being sarcastic or predicting his own death. He responds cruelly, you too will die like this one.
Horrible.
But then the Thera reveals the truth he'd held back. He says, Layman, this gem, it was swallowed by this one, by the crane.
He knew all along.
It seems so. He adds, if this one did not die, I would not tell you about the gem, even if I were dying.
Because he was maybe protecting the bird. Until it was too late anyway.
That seems a likely interpretation. He waited until the crane's fate was sealed, perhaps knowing the jeweler's violent state. It's an incredible moment of revelation, cutting right through everything.
So the jeweler hears this.
He immediately cuts open the crane's belly, and there it is, the gem.
Oh, man. Seeing it there.
The text says he trembled, his mind finally flooded with intense regret, realizing what he'd done, the horror of it. He prostrates himself at the Thera's feet, begs for forgiveness, saying, I did it unknowingly, I didn't realize.
A moment of remorse, sure, but after inflicting such terrible, irreversible harm. Can the Thera forgive that?
He does. The Thera forgives him, but his words are profound. He says, Layman, the fault was neither yours nor mine.
Neither. Then whose fault was it?
He says it was the fault of Vata.
Vaka.
Yeah, the cycle of existence, the cycle of suffering itself.
What does that mean exactly? The cycle itself is to blame.
It's a deep concept. It seems to point towards the conditioned nature of reality within samsara, this endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The Thera isn't necessarily letting the jeweler off the hook for his actions, but he's suggesting that the whole chain of events, the gem being there, the crane acting on instinct, the jeweler's reaction driven by greed and fear, it all arises from the fundamental conditions of existence, where craving and ignorance inevitably lead to suffering and these kinds of tragic outcomes, even from seemingly accidental beginnings.
That adds a whole different layer. It's not just about individual blame, but the system they're caught in.
Exactly. So the jeweler, maybe hoping to patch things up, asks the Thera to continue accepting alms at his house. Like always. Go back to normal.
Can they go back to normal after that?
Well, the Thera refuses. And this decision, born from the trauma, marks a fundamental shift for him. He says, Layman, from now on, I will not enter the interior of another's house.
He won't go inside anymore.
No. He states, this fault occurred precisely because I entered the interior of a house. He links the vulnerability, the situation itself, to being within that domestic space.
Wow. So he takes this radical step away from that kind of reliance, that intimacy almost.
Yes. He declares that from then on, he'll only stand at the doorstep, accept alms only as his feet carry him there. He decides to take up a dhutanga practice.
Dhutanga?
It's one of several ascetic practices, meant to purify the mind, reduce defilements, in this case, limiting his interactions and dependence on lay people. It's a commitment to a more austere path.
And he even spoke a verse about it.
He did, reflecting this new path. Little by little, the muni's food is cooked in house after house. I shall wander for alms, my leg power exists. A muni is a sage, an ascetic. It's a declaration of independence, really.
An intensified spiritual practice, born directly from the suffering he endured, a profound consequence.
And sadly, the text notes that the Thera passed away not long after, from the illness caused by those severe injuries.
So the immediate story ends with the Thera's death, but the narrative isn't quite finished, is it? It looks beyond that.
Exactly. It shifts to the longer-term consequences, the karmic outcomes. This is where the teaching aspect really comes to the fore.
Right. The monks later asked the Buddha about everyone involved.
Yes. They asked, what happened next? Where were they reborn? And the Buddha revealed their subsequent lives, showing precisely how their actions, intentions, and states of mind during that one critical incident shaped their future destinations.
This is the core illustration of karma and rebirth in the story. Let's break down those outcomes.
Okay. According to the Buddha, first, the crane.
The bird that started it all accidentally.
It was reborn in the womb of the jeweler's wife.
Reborn right back into that same family.
Into that same dynamic, yes. A fascinating twist, perhaps linking its physical involvement directly back to them.
Okay, and the jeweler, the one who committed the violence.
He died and was reborn in hell. Avicii hell, one of the most severe, is often mentioned for such acts.
A harsh outcome, directly linked to his actions.
Clearly. The text implies his false suspicion, his intense greed and anger, and critically, the brutal violence against the Thera, someone he knew and supposedly cared for, generated immensely negative karma, leading directly to a realm of suffering.
A stark contrast to his life then. What happened to her? She tried to stop him.
The jeweler's wife died and was reborn in the heaven world. To see to heaven is often associated with such virtue.
And the text says why.
Yes, specifically because of her soft heart towards the Thera, her compassion, her intuition, her pleading for restraint even when facing her husband's rage. Her positive state of mind and attempts at kindness bore fruit.
So in the same event, you have actions driven by anger and greed leading to hell, and actions driven by compassion leading to heaven. It's such a clear picture.
It couldn't be clearer. It demonstrates divergent karmic paths stemming from a single shared experience. And finally, the Thera himself.
The victim of the violence, but also the one who forgave.
He, being anasava, meaning without defilements, free from greed, hatred, delusion, attained parinibbana.
Final liberation.
Yeah.
So his suffering and death didn't lead to another rebirth in the cycle.
Exactly. His spiritual attainment, his inner purity, meant that even this violent end was truly the end of the line for him in terms of rebirth. He transcended karma's grip on future lives.
So after explaining all these different fates, the Buddha gives a teaching.
Yes, he ties it all together and recites a verse that encapsulates the whole message. Some are born in a womb, evildoers go to hell, the well-doers go to heaven, those without defilements pass away into parinibbana.
That really sums it up based on the characters.
Perfectly. He even clarified that womb here specifically meant a human womb, pointing to the crane's rebirth. The source says the rest of the meaning was pretty straightforward from the story itself.
And this teaching had a real impact.
A profound impact. The text notes that many listeners hearing this story and the Buddha's explanation attained various spiritual fruits right then and there, including stream entry, which is the first stage of enlightenment.
So this one incident, a gem swallowed by a bird, it triggers this whole cascade. Suspicion, terrible violence, an accidental death, regret, forgiveness, and then these vastly different outcomes. A monk, a jeweler, his wife, even the bird, all interconnected, all ending up in different places based on their karma.
It's an intricate web, isn't it? It really shows the power of both negative states like greed and anger and positive states like compassion and detachment, and how our individual responses within any given situation fundamentally shape our destiny.
The jeweler's cruelty leads to hell. The wife's kindness leads to heaven. The Thera's liberation leads beyond rebirth. The crane's involvement leads back to the human realm, right back where it started in a way.
Yeah, a complete spectrum of possibilities illustrated right there.
What really stands out to you most from this story? Is it the suddenness of the violence, the contrast between the husband and wife, the Thera's final view on Vada?
For me, it's the stark clarity, how directly it links inner states, greed, anger, compassion, forgiveness, detachment, to these very concrete outer consequences, these future lives. It's a very direct, almost map-like picture of different paths taken and destinations reached.
This deep dive really shows how quickly circumstances can flip, can't they? And how profoundly different our intentions and reactions within those circumstances can be, leading to such incredibly divergent futures.
Absolutely.
This ancient story really challenges us, I think, to consider the weight of our actions, our own capacity for both well, cruelty and compassion, and just the complex, maybe sometimes invisible way consequences unfold.
It does leave you thinking.
It really does. It leaves you wondering, what does vata, that cycle of suffering, truly encompass? And how much of our own journey, our own destiny, is being shaped right now by these interconnected cycles we're all caught up in?